group interests, individual interests, national interests. And the definition of politics itself gives that indication that you are referring to the struggle between actors in the political system who are portraying conflicting desires and conflicting interests for the purpose of determining what Davidistic calls the authoritative allocation of values, or what Harold Hasman describes as who gets what, when, and how. And there's a consensus of opinion in the political science that politics is about power, it's about influence, it's also about authority in the pursuit of interest. So interest is the common denominator when you talk in terms of politics. But this is not restricted to the local or the national level. It's also the same at the international level. Because nations also try to influence other nations or other groups in the world in order to advance their interests in the international system. So, what I'm trying to say here is that national interest determines what is the content, the character, and the nature of relationships among nations. That's at the level of the international system. Now, how does culture come in? Culture is important because it determines the history of people. It influences their relationship. It determines how they behave. What is their attitude to the aged? What is their attitude to the elderly? What is their attitude to the infirm? So, to a large extent, culture is such that it has a number of variables that also shows how we determine how we advance as a people for what I call better living and improved life chances. It not only defines our way of life in a rather comprehensive manner, it also extends to the conduct of our relations at the social and political level. And this is why the issue of culture is important. One of the main reasons why my development has been a distant possibility for us in many parts of Africa, partly here in Nigeria, with the issue of development, is that we've inherited alien culture and we've been practicing with alien culture. We seem to be too comfortable with alien values, with alien worldviews, which are being understood by those in the leadership. And people then govern us without a proper understanding of the linkage between the institutions of state that they preside over and the history and the collective experiences of their people which establish those institutions. So there is a disconnect between the nation state and of course the interests of the generality of the people in that society. So my position here is that for us to be able to seriously advance the interests of the country, we need to create a situation where there will be harmony between governance and culture. That when that happens, the people will be the focus of government and they will be the focus of the institutions of government. The state overriding objective will then be how to meet the basic needs of the people, and people's interests and concerns will also constitute the basis of government. I don't need to define culture. We all know that it's something of the people's way of life. It talks about their language, their attitude, their proverbs, sort of their prejudices. So we can talk of culture in material and non-material sense. But what I think is most important to say here is that human beings learn and create culture in both material and in its material and non-material essence. But the critical question that we need to answer is, what do I consider interest to be? For me, simply put, etymologically, interest will refer to that thing that is of value to you as an individual, or that is of value to the country as a nation. And when it refers to a nation, then we define it as national interest. And national interest, therefore, as far as I'm concerned, will encompass what a nation tries to achieve through its foreign policy, through its relations relations with other nations and through the implementation of that policy. Having said that, the critical component of our foreign policy has been historically the issue of cultural diplomacy, which is my point here. That for us to be able to make progress and effectively advance the national interest of Nigeria, we must take cultural diplomacy much more seriously. For me, it has taken a back seat in the foreign policy balance. And if you look at the formation of regional organizations like ECOWAS, and a lot of our foreign policy objectives about protecting black people all over the world, Afrocentric foreign policy, all of these are grounded on realization that we have established ties with other African people. And that makes us be committed to protecting and defending their interests. And that is because we take our culture as a people seriously. And one of the commonalities in the culture of the African people is the fact that we regard ourselves as our brothers keeper, which I think South Africans are so elevated to a greater height. We believe that we are brothers keeper. And that's why what happens in South Africa seems then to have affected us directly, to the point that Nigeria became regarded as a frontline state during the struggle against apartheid. So what I'm saying here is that development can also not occur when culture takes a path or belongs to what we call the residual category. Our development plans, our foreign policy objectives must put culture at the very central position. And by culture, I'm talking about our way of life, our history, our governance institutions, which was benefit from the experience of our people. Now we think that democracy is alien. It is not. A lot of our kingdoms and empires in those days practice governance systems that were rooted in democracy, where the principles of checks and balances are operated effectively. Even kings can be called to order when they commit excesses, but with justice in order. In fact, the king does not need to be told that his days are numbered or that his people are already against him. It sees it around him and it takes decision as required by the constitution of that community, which is to commit suicide and abdicate the throne. So these are some of the things that we need to do. Thankfully, the constitution that we have now, as bad as it is in section 21, actually talks about directing on Nigerian culture. And that is something that we need to bring out more forcefully, because it talks about protecting, preserving, and promoting Nigerian culture to enhance human dignity and consistent with the fundamental objectives as provided in this chapter. That's chapter 2. We must also encourage development of technological and scientific studies which enhance cultural value. So even our constitutions realize it and appreciate and understand the importance of culture. So, Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what I want to say in this paper is that culture is so important in today's world because it can enhance what we call our soft power. By soft power, we are talking about cooperative power, not coercive power. Power that we instinctively acquire by virtue of the fact that we influence people's psychology, we influence their opinion, we influence their attitude towards a country. And the best way to do that is not to acquire ammunition, no matter how much ammunition you acquire. It can be the United States, but can be them in the area of culture. And when we export purposely and purposively our cultural product, because, as I said, culture is so intrinsic to development. And historical experience has shown that countries that have developed today have developed largely on the basis, on the foundational basis of their culture. One of the reasons why development is still far from us is that we think we can do it outside the context of our culture. And that is clearly an impossibility. Part of what we need to do is to develop our languages, harmonize the orthographies of those languages, develop their vocabulary, and all of it, in order to make them competitive. And also, in addition, scientificate those languages and make them languages of technology. If you look at countries that manufacture products today, the manuals will be partly written in their own language. Can we do that in Nigeria? Because we have not even scientificated our languages. or converted them into languages of science and technology. Of course, culture provides the means to exercise power of attraction. I'm saying soft power. It allows you to exercise power of attraction and power of seduction. We all know what seduction means. A woman cannot seduce a man if she's not attractive. Similarly, you as a nation cannot seduce others and attract if your culture is not attractive, if you have nothing to offer, if all you want to offer is a mimicry of what America or Britain offers, then you are a gunner. Now let me quickly respond or comment on what a general former foreign affairs minister said. He talked about what we did in those days. My question is, when did we lose our mojo? And why did we lose it? We lost it because we lost our sense of identity. We lost it because we began to treat culture as a residual category. In those days, we took pride in who we are. We supported liberation movement and defended blacks all over the world. But today, do we even defend ourselves? Do we defend our people when they are humiliated abroad? Whereas in those days, Nigerians stand up when South Africans are being abused, are being degraded, are being despised. But today, the situation is different. So what do we do if we have to enhance the prospects of cultural diplomacy? First, as I said, we must begin to emphasize again the culture of being abroad as a keeper. And once we do that, we promote not only our unity as a people, we also promote people-to-people interaction within the sub-region and the entire continent of Africa. I think we also need to strengthen our cultural and historical ties with the African diaspora. The African diaspora is strategic, not only to us as a people, historically speaking, but also for the benefit that we can get from it in terms of scientific and technological development and the resources that they can attract to the continent. There is no doubt that the promotion of our invaluable heritage can enrich our social capital as a people and ensure endogenous development. In drawing up our development plans, emphasis ought to be placed on the cultural dimension to development. Secondly, we need to do more in the promotion of our Nollywood films. People have said that a lot, so I'm not saying anything new. But what I'm saying that is new is that we need to sanitize them before we export them. Purge them of all impurities and ensure that they promote only those aspects of our culture that are positive to sell them to the outside world, not ritual killings or money ritual, which is what we do, or portraying every old woman as a witch. You understand? Once you see an old woman in a film, you begin to think of her being a witch as if old age is a sin or a crime. Again, we need to also ensure that we encourage those traditional practices among our people which promote democratic governance. And I've mentioned, the Igbo village democracy has a lot to offer us in the area of democracy. How people, according to age grades, make contributions and take part in decision making. We can bring that to bear in our own democratic system. Is it not ironic that the country that we are looking up to today is a country that has been Trump as the president? Are you proud of that? So that is a lesson for us, that we must create a democratic system that takes into consideration our own cultural and historical realities, and which can be distinctively Nigerian in its own outcome. And lastly, I think again, in order to align our culture with our national interests, which is the primary purpose of policy and governance, we must come up with endogenous development strategies. We are too much interested in exogenous development strategies. We must look for strategies that are inward-looking. We must create our own ideas. We must be producers of knowledge and not consumers of knowledge. We must also have knowledge that reflects our peculiar historical and cultural realities. This was what the Asians did to turn their economies into advanced economies. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today, when the people talks about Niccolo Machiavelli, we talk about the prince. What is wrong in translating the prince into indigenous languages? Have you heard that? That will make it relevant to our own circumstance, and people can have lessons to learn. Nobody has been thinking about that. Some of the classical texts ought to be translated into our own indigenous language and make them available and borrow from them. I am not saying that our culture was isolated or that. Rather, it was able to take in those things from outside that are beneficial to us without losing the foundational element of our culture. And lastly, government cultural agencies have been laid back in the last couple of years. I remember in the early 2000s when I served in government in the cultural establishment. Everywhere we went in Africa, we were always welcome with open arms, and even outside the country. I was in Paris in 2008, and on the streets of Paris, you saw young men, women swarming around us. Oh, you are from the country of Okocha. I mean, oh, and he started mentioning footballers, started mentioning Nollywood stars. All of these are things that we can take advantage to make our country better. Once again, I thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I congratulate you.